Hey folks, this is a special episode. I'm sharing with you a panel presentation that I did alongside 6 other amazing leaders in the field of gender equality. The panel was presented as part of International Women's Day in 2022, and it was part of the World Summit on the Information Society, WSIS, TalkX series.
So in what ways, Anthony, do you think we can be more inclusive to include new voices? And what are the key opportunities in promoting diversity and inclusion? Over to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Gitanjali. I mean, that's the million dollar question, right? Is how do we crack that nut? How do we find ways of bringing new voices into the discussion? I recently, even in my age, joined TikTok. And would you believe that when I was scrolling through all these amazing content creators on TikTok, I came across a new concept I'd never heard of called decentering. And so I just quickly started doing as much research as I could to try to figure out, what does this mean? What does this mean for me in my career? How can I practice decentering in my work? Basically, decentering just comes down to someone in my position, someone in a position of power, someone in a position of authority, taking themselves deliberately with intention out of the spotlight and refocus, recentering the spotlight on people who are from marginalized backgrounds, people who are excluded, people who experience any sort of barriers to accessing technology, leadership positions, digital skills, and anything else you could imagine. And so I quickly started going back through my own history, my own career, and thinking, in what ways have I manifested that? In what ways can I continue to try to think more critically about my work? And in what ways can I activate this decentering approach? And one of the things I happened upon, and you've already alluded to it, that I've worked a lot with youth, I've worked a lot with young people, and especially with young women, to try to find ways of bringing them into areas of innovation, bringing them into these spaces where new ideas are formed, where careers are started. And so I came upon this basic principle and practice, which is surround yourself with diversity. I work in a computer science department. The absolute easiest, most low threshold thing for me would be to work with other people who have the same background characteristics as I do, because I'm almost surrounded by them. It takes intention. It takes an active approach to identifying individuals with different experiences than I have and bringing them into my work and finding ways of collaborating, finding ways of supporting, finding ways of advocating for their work, their ideas, and again, recentering the spotlight on their work. So if I could implore anyone out there who is watching this and who is thinking, well, I'm in this position of power, but I'm not quite sure what to do. Number one thing, surround yourself with diversity. And in doing so, you'll have the opportunity to mentor and support individuals whose careers can absolutely be made because of that support, because of that effort. And when you give them those opportunities, when you shift the limelight, when you shift the spotlight to them, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. And in doing so, you'll also, and this may be the part that's a little bit more sensitive, is you'll become aware of your own limitations, your own biases that you possess, that you were raised with, that you have from your own background. And so when I do make that effort to surround myself, I become uniquely aware of the limitations or the opportunities that I've experienced, that the same opportunities haven't been shared by women with disabilities. Women of color, women who maybe come from rural areas, women who grew up and were raised in the global South. And it also gives us a chance to create multilateral partnerships. So I don't see it as my role to be the kind of clog in the drain, but to actually find ways of bridging individuals who may not have had the chance to connect before. And then that gives opportunities for women to support women, for men to support women, and for us to all kind of work together. So be aware of that bias, be aware of your own experiences, and then I always call out the men to please, if you see acts of misogyny, if you see acts of sexism in your workplace, in your educational spaces, call them out or call them in to say, hey, look, this is not appropriate for where we are, for what we're doing. So I identify as a feminist, but I just want to point out what Arti had said. It's kind of easy to identify as a feminist now. 10 years ago, it might not have been as easy to identify with that word because of the stereotypes and the kind of negative impression that Amy refers to here. So I'm grateful for the men and women who identified as feminists in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and leading up to today. And I'm proud to call myself a feminist now. And it's one of the first things I tell my students in their first semester computer science classes, 400 of them. And one of the first things they learn about me is that I identify as a feminist. Yeah, I just want to chime in and piggyback on something Morten mentioned there. It's, sexism, misogyny, the patriarchy affects us all. It affects men as well as women, and the issues that men face when it comes to these internalized value systems around what it means to be a man can be hugely challenging to their life experience, to their gender identity, to everything that they experience. So I think when we talk about gender equality, we're talking about a benefit for all society.